Liars. Okay. So, okay. So there have been 4 videos so far where I've talked about my in progress memoir, which is a multi-form work where every chapter has a different form. And I think the form is dictated by the content. And for a computer that's not connected to the internet, I sure get a lot of pop-ups when I first get onto it. So, the arguably the most eventful year of my life is also the longest chapter of book 1 of my book, probably of both books. It's A Walk Across America. And because my book kind of is about America a little bit, just, bearing witness to it during a certain time, I think it's kind of important that the book kind of looks at all of America and at all of my American ancestry. Because, I don't know, do you ever think about your work like in the far future when you're going to be representative of a time? I want to make writing to last, and I want it to be representative, include as much of the time as possible. Plus, that's just good world building. That's something mainstream literary work can take from genre stuff. Build your worlds well. So the hike chapter was arguably the most cinematic chapter. So I thought it should have a cinematic form. It takes the form of a 7-episode mini-series, musico-dramatic work. Wild meets Easy Rider, lots of music montages, kind of a punk rock vibe. TVMA for sure, full of TMI stuff. But it also starts with a series Bible, so you could say that's a real conceit. But the thing is it really is something that could be a show. My form chapters, I always want them to be good examples of whatever they are. I think this actually is a good miniseries that would make a great show, or a series of 7 movies, whatever. What we found when we walked across America. Tagline: walking across America, everyone can hear you scream. We had a lot of drama. And this is just kind of like a Q&A. Talk about the script and the series, the themes, what it's about, episode by episode. Episode 1, episode 2 and 3. I really used a 5-act structure really strictly, and I studied 5-act structures when I was writing this. It seemed to lend itself just perfectly to the nonfiction events I was writing about. Yeah. So just an informative, kind of info-dense write-up. But I think it'll be a good experience for readers to read this series Bible and then read the script. They'll really get a sense of it all. And 12 pages isn't that long. It's kind of a fast read. Okay, talk to us about The Abundant Music. Would you consider this a musical? Only if you consider Easy Rider 1969 a musical. Every episode of What We Found When We Walked Across America contains several musical sequences, montages like narratively embedded music videos for excellent, typically alternative rock songs. Just like Easy Rider did with all those motorcycle riding scenes, and its music just right for all that. One of the hikers is a guitarist, another is a pianist, another a singer, and the hikers sometimes sang ridiculous original songs together, such as Cats on Parade. Sample lyric: now you never have to be afraid, they'll always be at your aid, Cats on Parade. So there is some diegetic music, and all 3 of these hikers get their solos. But I call this work musico-dramatic. It has music in it and humor, but ultimately it's a drama. A soundtrack box set or playlist for this series would be an all-killer, no-filler collection, full of neglected alternative gems, all invoking in various ways the feeling of this journey. I'm making a weirdo freak book. So after the series Bible, then there's this 500-page miniseries script, 7 episodes. It's nonfiction, though. And it's the longest chapter in the book. And I know the proper ways to write screenplays, and I make some exceptions here and there with this form. For instance, I'm a lot more descriptive than a screenplay would usually be, because since I want these nonfiction elements included, it doesn't matter if I describe them a little more. Also, I include things that would usually be left up to directors to write because I realize that people are going to be reading this. It's a chapter in my book. So let's say I'll give a little more about expressions, little details, camera angles, visual motifs, even shot instructions, whatever. Why not? I've read so many screenplays, and you know what the number one rule of screenplays is? Nothing. There's no consistency in any of them. There's every single screenplay I've ever seen has been formatted differently. Yeah, learn the basics, but like, come on. I remember going to the screenwriting conference once, and this like producer was like, "I threw a screenplay away because someone said 'towards' with an S in it." As soon as I saw that, I knew it was from an amateur. I was like, okay. All I'm learning here is that insane people have power in industries sometimes. So, yeah, it's called What We Found When We Walked Across America by me. Episode 1 is Florida. Each one really would be like 90 pages, 90 minutes, I think. And because, they're more like 60 pages long a piece, I think. Wait, let me think. More like 70 pages a piece. But since they have a lot of music video sequences, often to like late 90s garage rock, like Dinosaur Jr. type stuff. Teenage Fan Club. Wait, yeah. Or maybe if not them, Guided by Voices. That's what I meant. I'm looking for. Oh, here we go. Okay, I think this part's funny. I would want to read a little part from each section. Exterior, desiccated swampland, day. Mike and Jeff trudged thirstily along the Florida Trail, gasping, through a bone-dry stretch of the Everglades. Jeff points through a sun-baked stand of trees toward the blurry form of a house slumping alone in a wide clearing. Mike, look, we can get water. Oh my gosh, finally. Jeff, just in time, dying. Mike and Jeff walk through the trees, stepping into the wide clearing surrounding the house, a house-side faucet visible. Exterior, clearing, day continuous. The house itself is a sprawling compound, its every window curtained with coarse brown cloth, broken lights all around. The clearing around it is a nightmare, strewn with the bones and mutilated corpses of dead horses, cows, sheep, etc. This place is a remote, woodsy locale right out of a horror film. A chainsaw roars from trees back behind the house. Mike, hoarsely, I'm not that thirsty. Jeff, croaking, me neither. Mike and Jeff turn around and walk back the way they came. Totally nonfiction scene. I don't know. I've never heard of anyone writing a nonfiction script in quite this way. I think it's a really cool work, honestly. Let's see. So that Florida. I mean, I think it was when writing the Florida chapter that I was like, this is just going to have to be much longer. There's a lot just to Florida even. And also, I only had one such adventure like this in my life. I've got to do justice to it. You don't walk across the country every day if you're most people. I've only done it once. I think it's entertaining AF, honestly. The South, that was an interesting chapter. A lot of that was on the Appalachian Trail. So you kind of has this trail culture. And let's see. A lot of rain. I really think this could be made fairly economically. With a skeleton crew, I mean, you got to do a lot of real location shooting up and down the East Coast. But come on, it's the easiest coast to drive. There's roads everywhere. And that could totally be done. And then just get stock footage from all these places. It doesn't even matter if it looks fake. That could be funny. And, use it as green screen background like in Kung Pao Enter the Fist. But each one of these episodes, it's just crazy how fitting real life is, when you adapt it into writing. It's like, I feel like art completes reality in some way. Oh. So this time I got separated from my group and I slept in this crazy windstorm in the forest. And when I woke up, I found out it had been like a tornado and it destroyed the town that was like half a mile from where I was. And I walked out into this totally, oh my God, it was crazy. Did you sleep out in that? Tell you, travel is good, adventure is good. Wake something up, you know. Oh, here's where I bought at an auction all the love letters of a traveling 1970s salesman with many relationships. Our hike didn't have an antagonist, so but we had this figure that was just perfect to use in writing this for an antagonist. He was like our seventh hiker that we always joked about. We got his picture from a poncho packaging photo. It's this kind of dorky looking guy in orange plastic, and we would always joke that he was like the embodiment of all that ails us. And now writing about it, I'm like, that's a perfect element to include in a script. That's the kind of thing people would make up for a script, and I happen to have it from real life. It's just an element to use. Back to scene. John plays Monty Python's 1979 Brian song on his guitar. Jeff continued. I mean, like, you know how we always feel like we're missing a hiker? Well, this is him. This is Brian. I mean, just look at him. Look at him. Look at him. Raises the photo high. I wouldn't trust him, though. I wouldn't trust him a whit. Well, I'd trust him nary a whit, but no further. No. In fact, there's something about him that makes me think he is really the physical embodiment of all chaos and tragedy across all time. That jaw. The other hikers nod and smile, amused and playing along. John singing an original. Brian, Brian, Brian. Ray, I don't know why, but I feel smarter just looking at him. Mike, Kim, and Dakota, same. Oh, it was just such a fun, like, writer's room hive mind that group had. Everyone would just riff and be weird. It's a little like Douglas Copeland's book Gen X, but walking. Generation X. Just always telling stories and making up stuff and yes-anding. Yeah, this was a guy we met on the Appalachian Trail. My dad was a space alien. I'm a star child. I have abilities like telepathy and foresight. Like when I was a kid, I drew a crayon drawing of the Challenger explosion just before it happened. That's why my trail name is Miles, because I'm miles away from home. These are all nonfiction little anecdotes from the trail. Also here, camped out operator, a hiker, Dakota and Jeff. Operator wears thick round glasses and has big laugh lines. Operator. So one night I was breaking into this apartment with my friend and we were carrying this giant TV downstairs. My friend turned to me and said, laughs, Dakota, laughing, Operator, your stories. Oh, man. Oh, this is just a weird scene. This is totally nonfiction. Exterior, local motel, Franklin, Tennessee, late day. Mike, Jeff, and Dakota loiter packless in a motel parking lot. The weather seems friendly, like spring, warm, clear. A group of local men stand facing them as if conversing. Mike, yeah, so we're looking for like a good local place to eat around. Local man number one, so excited to help. Oh, McDonald's! There's McDonald's! Mike, no, I'm sorry, I mean like local, like there's only one, only here. Local man number two, Burger King, Burger King, Dakota, I think he means like locally owned, like here in Franklin. Local man number three, Wendy's, Wendy's, Wendy's. You all know Wendy's. We got a Wendy's, and you could go to Wendy's here. Well, that makes me laugh personally, just recounting that. Like I said, so many of these are written in like micro scenes. Like if I just remember one person saying one thing, that's the scene. I'm still trying to follow the screenwriting principle of every scene leads to the next and every scene leads the story forward. But, you know, sometimes they're just these little flashes. Student. And then he saw this strange light in the swamps and it communicated with him, he said. And when he came back to UGF, the University of Gainesville, Florida, he put up all these posters all over advertising lectures about what he had learned from the light. He did all these lectures and gave some interviews and then just like disappeared. Okay, I think this is very funny. This is a scene. Exterior, wooden shelter, Appalachian Trail, North Carolina, day. Mike sits in a wooden in on a wooden platform in a three-walled wooden shelter near a water pump and fire pit by a dirt trail. Every shelter scene is different and the same. Rando crowds. Mike sits with a Cliff Bar by an old man, Mike half reading The Devil's Tramping Ground, both men loitering by packs. In woods nearby, a little log cabin that has withered away. Mike going off. But people just choose whatever name to be their trail name, their name they'll have for months, giving it like no thought at all. And the rest of us are stuck having to say these stupid things over and over. Anyway, never mind. I don't know. I mean, what's your trail name? Old man / Nitzy Bear. Nitzy Bear. Mike. Oh, what? Nitzy Bear. Oh. Mike is completely disarmed now here. Literally speechless. True story. Okay, so this is all the South chapter. And if you watch that part 4 video, I literally did talk about a lot of this script chapter, but it's just such a long chapter. I don't think I could look at it too much here, really. Virginia was very eventful. At the start of it, on this hike across the country, my younger sibling got tendonitis so bad that a wheelchair. We got him a wheelchair and pushed him across the whole state of Virginia. My younger brother Jeff, now my younger sister Jess, and but Virginia was eventful, and it was so cool because even though it was such hard work and so hot and humid out, and just crazy up and down hills pushing this wheelchair, and all kinds of adventures, good and bad. It was such a wild, crazy adventure. So much rain, but we left the trails and like the kind of contained trail culture. Which I'm glad we got to experience all across the South. Florida was its own thing on the Florida Trail. Not much of a trail culture. We ran into several other hikers over the course of the whole thing. That was it. And then there were some road walks and little trails. And that bit of the Appalachian Trail was very interesting. But then we were back on to we were building a road walk in Virginia. It was all dirt roads and little back roads and very hilly, very humid, pushing this wheelchair, which my then brother would sit in with his backpack on the back, and whoever was pushing the wheelchair had to carry their pack too. So it was crazy. I remember sweating like I'd never sweated before, pushing everything and everyone up this long, long, steep hill and just feeling like, do I not have eyebrows? Just sweat pouring into my eyebrows. But Virginia is visually distinctive from the other episodes of this time in this presentation because of the wheelchair thing. And it keeps the group really close and tight together, which creates new tensions. And I think there's just so much interesting stuff here. I couldn't believe how eventful that was and how easily it transitioned to this dramatic form. I think it's a cool told story too. Oh wait. Oh, this is a meeting that super old guy, John Lacey Morris. His crazy house. A guy living in a boat next to a flooded quarry. I swear whoever wrote that movie Garden State met this same person, because there's like an identical scene to us meeting this guy. Oh man, this is a crazy scene that happened. There was this 4-story lotus flower on the banks of the St. James River in Virginia, this big meditation place, watched over by Sri Swami Satchidananda, the guy who said the prayer at Woodstock. It was kind of a culty vibe. But anyway, we paid some random teenagers we met to take us there, and then they turned out to be like KKK people. Really intense and kind of scary. And anyway, and we told the story about these kids we had paid for a ride and how we were like kind of was scared, and all these hippies at this commune didn't understand and thought that we were like part of that group, and we're like, no, what? Yikes. Yeah, anyway, all sorts of things happening. And then that's, okay, so that's 3 of the 7 episodes so far. Episode 4, North of South, is the North Atlantic states. And see if any lines or anything cool jumps out. Singing karaoke with Dan Brute from Chumbawamba. Oh, meeting this Amish guy in Pennsylvania. This is a very eventful time as well. There was not. Oh, this is when the group kind of broke up. We had this big falling out, and then we got back together. This is the big drama, the Act 3 crisis. There's a lot of music, a lot of fun, a lot of goofy stuff, a lot of real life. It's all real life. I think this is such an interesting work. I hope it gets made. I think it's kind of something new. Episode 5, New England. Structurally, this chapter, let's see what's going on here. This begins the falling action. It's 2001 is when this takes place. I know it's crazy to have a chapter of your prose book be a 500-page miniseries script, but I'm like, live a little, people. Why can't a work be unusual and different and have all these different elements? You know what I mean? We don't talk excitedly at parties about normal stuff. We want to talk about cool, different things. And then that falling action continues with Maine. Both Maine and Virginia were like additions to the larger structure. I was like, I'll just have the rising and falling action each get an extra episode because there's just more to say, and I don't want to rush through one of the most eventful, detail-rich times of my life. And also, it's a chance to get a real portrait of America, which, when you're telling a story of your life, you are somebody that has a nationality and is representative of a time and a place. So the more America I can put in, the better. In a way, I've sometimes thought about my work as a tell-all American memoir. They're like, I should get a British agent. Because in a way, it's kind of saying yeah, it's not all great all the time. I do believe in the better ideals. It's more human than patriotic. Maine was very eventful. We were in Maine when 9/11 happened. And, you know what? New England has such a cool part in it, though. I don't want to rush through that really quick. When we get to Boston, it's so crazy because we founded the hike in Boston, and then we flew to Key West, Florida, and we walked back there. And it is so weird to look around and see a place that but see it with all that context. Here's where that's going on. Yeah. Exterior, Public Square, Harvard Square, Cambridge, Massachusetts Day. The hikers stride the cobblestone streets of Cambridge, entering Harvard Square with its subway, tea stop, quaint red newspaper kiosks, coffee shops, and cafes. Some advertising stages and open mics like marquee-topped Club Passim. Harvard Square also features streams of briefcase-carrying business types and crust punks slumped near the tea stop. The hikers set their packs by a coffee shop, Albon Pan. Mike, this is blowing my mind because I would hang out here all the time last year. This place is so familiar to me. Bought magazines there, and I remember when one of those crust punks got murdered. I talked with their friends afterward. It's so sad. A date I went on once suggested we feed homeless people over here, which was weird and sad, but worthwhile. Anyway, now I feel this place in huge context. I feel it as a part of an entire side of this epic continental landmass. Soon. The hikers stand outside under a yellow awning, drinking coffee from paper cups with plastic lids, typical modern. But Mike just cannot handle it. Holding his coffee, he faces south, and we see a high-speed version of all the many miles already walked to get here, and we see that slash how this reality here exists in context, in such huge context, including the thousands of miles between right here and Key West, Florida. Maybe all the hiking footage so far could be reversed and stitched together and conflated with the explanatory route maps. We should viscerally feel that this place is connected to so many other places on a giant shelf of land, and in a much bigger place, this continent of North America. Boston, this place now seen anew as a piece of a larger planet. Ray, we have just looked at a whole lot of America all at once. I mean, this book's wild. This book's wild, and this chapter's wild, and this would be a wild miniseries, and it should exist. So anyway, then we get to Maine. Maine is where 9/11 happens, and we had just been at the World Trade Center in the previous episode, and like two episodes back, one episode ends with the hikers with their backs to one of the World Trade Centers and looking up and seeing the tops of the buildings swaying in the clouds 3 weeks before 9/11. And the night before 9/11, two of the hikers are at a shipyard in Bath, Maine, me and Dakota, and at this like glam bar where all the shipbuilders are singing glam rock. Oh man. There's a scene where on the morning of September 11th, well, get up with, because they have like a steam whistle that wakes all the iron workers up at 6 a.m. Oh, wow. Oh, here's where we got trapped on this island with this kind of violent alcoholic musician. That was crazy. He pulled my then brother's ear to the floor in an angry moment. Kind of scary. Oh, and this is we met the most talented, amazing young writer in Maine. When I was writing and researching this, so we stayed with her and her parents have since died, and she wrote their obituaries, and they were so beautiful that I quote the obituaries that she wrote, credited to her, of course, in the text over this story and about these people kind of flashing forward. And what do I say? Catherine hugs the hikers and Vicky goodbye, gets in, and Mark, Becky, and Catherine drive away waving, and we're left feeling reminded that despite being the focus of 6, maybe 90-minute episodes of TV so far, these hikers are the main characters only in their own stories, that everyone have met or will meet has lives just as rich, complex, and meaningful. Also, that death is the future of literally every human's present. Oh, and that this Catherine Mead is one amazing writer. If obituaries could get Pulitzer Prizes. I mean, seriously, these things. Like, check this out. Catherine Mead, 2005, voiceover, reading an obituary she wrote. Greenbush, Rebecca Carolyn Mead, died October 3rd, 2005. She was born November 22nd, 1950, in Lafayette, Tennessee. A woman of ineffable strength and moonlike in her beauty, Becky died with much love of life. A gentle being, she delighted in grasshoppers and hummingbirds, tomatoes, and oranges. With 2 dark birds for eyes and the great golden globe of her mouth, she illuminated every room, each moment, each life. She was the great whale we barnacles clung to. Becky's laughter gave us sustenance. Her embraces fed us dark chocolate. Crow-like, Becky loved shiny shards of stone and was seldom seen without her treasures. So her Vatican soul, she will forever remain in each gleaming green stone. Becky is survived by her husband. And then Catherine Mead, 2009, voiceover, reading an obituary she wrote. Mark A. Mead died February 18th, 2009. He was born in Detroit, Michigan. With a mouth full of apple blossoms and eyes full of swallowing smoke, Mark lived his life like a knife dropped into open water, like a light-drenched brook trout, like a curling blue flame making ash of oak. A man of many wanderings, Mark preferred not to leave the forest. His mutterings shroud maple saplings. His sighs were heard only where the ferryman hears. He howled like Ginsberg and swerved like Stafford. His name is in the book of myths. He was husband to the lovely late Becky Mead, father to Joanna Russell and Catherine, friend to... I mean, what? I just couldn't believe the profound power of that writing. Sure, I'll probably have to get some legal clearance or something. I don't know, is quoting an obituary okay? I'm tempted to do it once in a while. Tempted in another essay I can think of someone else. Anyway. Here I have a music montage, but it's set to Wisława Szymborska's Travel Elegy. One time I went to this great skate film event, and somebody had soundtracked theirs to What He Got Through This Land Is Your Land, and somebody else had soundtracked their skate video to Andrew Dice Clay's stand-up monologue, one of his stand-up bits. And I just thought that's really clever. Just an unconventional soundtrack idea like that. So, yeah, I have another part where it's soundtracked to a Mitch Hedberg stand-up bit. In this, that's not the Mitch in this part on the page. That's a coincidence. Yeah. I mean, and we just met people that were so illuminating. Like, we stayed with a guy who was all about forest health and had written a book called Beyond the Beauty Strip. And he talks about, like, the forests of Maine and how to live in harmony with them while also, using them as a resource where needed. And it's crazy. And then the last episode, which would correspond to Act 5, or what is that one? Conclusion. I really appreciated this part of it narratively when writing about this time, because it's like taking place during the year of 9/11, but suddenly we're in another country. We're in Canada. And, you would think that like all event was over, but some of the biggest stuff that would happen in the whole hike happened in the 7th chapter. For instance, my and my then brother's sister, Leanne, took her own life and died. And so we flew home to the funeral and then back, while the other hikers took a kayak trip. We also had a poisoning incident where 2 hikers almost died. Something crazy happened. And it was all in this like beautiful Gaspé Peninsula, this super scenic area that's of major significance to the colonization of America. Like the first British and French colonization came via Newfoundland, just north of this area. And this is the north end of the Appalachian Mountain chain in North America, besides some island in Newfoundland. But it's where it should have ended. I mean, it's a great place to end this so-called Eastern Continental Trail, but they keep extending it. This is a sad part about our sister's death. Crazy biz, crazy biz, crazy biz. This is the talkiest of the episodes because it's kind of like conclusions a little bit. I was reading a lot of John Sayles when I wrote this episode. Also, I like John Sayles' scripts a lot. And yeah, ends with that. But I think it's so cool. This is just one chapter of my book, chapter 20, series Bible, and a 500-page script. But I like to think of it as this like stealth, ready to adapt thing. Like say my book takes off and is a hit, and there's like adaptation interest, which is the thing that can happen. I'll be like, I got this one ready to go. Take this one right now. It's all ready. Could be in production tomorrow. I mean, pre-production. Plus, there's this whole like nostalgia thing for early 2000s going on right now. It's getting far away, a generational thing. I remember it happening for the 70s back in the 90s. Peter Frampton, whoa. It ends on kind of an interesting note. Anyway, that's a lot about one chapter. But yeah, what we found when we walked across America. The longest chapter of my almost completed, except for that one chapter, 60 chapter, 2-part, 2-volume maximalist memoir, Shadows of Clouds on the Mountains. But this is a pretty key part of it. And, sometimes you just got to be extra. If you want to be the best, you got to be a little extra. I always think of Columbo, as played by Peter Falk. Just one more thing. Just do more than anybody else. Stick around the crime scene and just look a little more. Etc. Anyway. Okay. Tomorrow's back to work after time off for spring break. Here we go. How do I feel about that? I don't feel great about waking up early, but what do you do? Nonfiction screenplay for a 7-part dramatic miniseries. All right, well, thanks for watching this, those of you that watched it. I don't know what you would have gotten out of this aside from, like, maximalism is crazy. Try not to be a maximalist. Ha ha ha. It looks like a lot of work. Take care.